The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. We're on Mannin Line, open line today through till 1 o'clock. Call 66 13 68. Text and WhatsApp on 166 177. You can email studio@manxradio.com. Whatever's on your mind, then by all means, share it with the Isle of Man. Is it the 20 miles per hour? Is it the steam packet not taking cash? Or anything else? Yeah, today's the last chance to have your say on plans to roll out 20 mile per hour zones across the Isle of Man. The limit's not going to be enforced. It won't be enforced. But it will be implemented in all residential areas of the Isle of Man. Here's the Infrastructure Minister, Michelle Haywood, MHK.
The Department has already received a large number of emails and will take time to consider all the evidence. Particular focus will be given to tailoring zones, after which there is an opportunity for further amendments to be made to the proposed traffic order if necessary. At this point, once all of those have been considered and any modifications have been made, then the traffic regulation order will be signed. It is true that we have not communicated this move well. The move to 20 mile an hour zones across towns and villages was subject of 2 Tynwald resolutions, and that is what we're seeking to deliver. The reason that it was done this way was because it was easier for the department not to sit and make lots of individual traffic orders, but to refer to a map and to use a set of criteria in order to define. Those set of criteria are well accepted in terms of implementing 20 mile an hour speed limits. There is good evidence that, although I hear this criticism quite a bit, that it will result in increased travel time, there is good evidence from other areas, particularly in urban and metropolitan areas, that travel times may be increased between 3 and 5%, which I hazard to guess would put maybe a minute or two onto most people's journeys. However, after these zones are implemented, the department will be monitoring the effect of the zones. That will be on traffic flow, it will be on speeds in the area, and we will be able to tailor and adjust zones if necessary.
That was Dr. Haywood. It's easier for the department, apparently. Easier for the department. The plans have been met with fierce opposition from some people, including many have also contacted Manx Radio. I've got a sheaf of correspondent of people who think this is, in their words, a very bad idea. One MHK thinks it's an active decision by the government to make driving unappealing, to make it as unappealing as possible. It's anti-driver. Middle MHK Stu Peters says in principle he's not against the idea of 20 mile per hour speed limits in residential areas.
I am slightly concerned about the rationale behind it. I'd assumed that it was to improve road safety and stop pedestrian accidents. Apparently, according to the Minister, that's not what it is at all. It's about improving the quality of life for people who live in residential areas. Well, most of them, you can't even do 20 miles an hour in most residential areas. So I think it's a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut, to be honest. It's a case of government telling people what they've got to do rather than encouraging them to do things. And I think it's pretty unnecessary. Whenever these things come out, it's always the motorist that gets it in the neck. Whenever there's a pedestrian versus motorist incident, I'm sure the motorist is the one who's got most to lose. People just walk out from between parked cars without looking. People cross the road while they're looking at the mobile phone these days, more and more. So there is no plan by the department to show people how to use the roads more safely if you're a pedestrian. But more than that, it comes down to the fact that everything that government seems to do, or everything that DOI seems to do these days, is all predicated on making driving less attractive. And that's just wrong. That's a political ideology, and it's a nonsense. The fact of the matter is that we're going to need cars for an awful long time. Turning roads into cycle lanes and pedestrian walkways and things like that is a nonsense. You know, most of us drive around because we have to, not because we want to. And this is a political thing and doesn't really make an awful lot of sense.
What do you think about it? What do you think about what the Minister had to say and Mr. Peters, the Middle MHK? I got a note in, this is from Tia. Hello, Tia. And she said, I'd do one thing. I'd prosecute people who cross the road wearing headphones. Don't they understand that wearing headphones means they can't hear what's going on? They're effectively rendering themselves deaf and just wandering across the road. So surely, if they're going to prosecute motorists for doing this, why don't they prosecute people for wearing headphones when crossing the road? Wow. Any thoughts on it? By all means, do get in touch. Ramsey commissioners have done it without a word. They just painted 20 all around Ramsey. Is that right, says Graham? 20 mile an hour speed limit's just another bit of the war on motorists who pay at least £20 million into the economy every year, says Alan, 867. Why doesn't, it's Clarkey now, Clarkey on 019, why doesn't the government make two great savings this year? Cancel the Red Arrows and give the money to the GNAS, the Great North Air Ambulance Service, and scrap the fireworks and do a drone display. The drone display was fantastic. And you can publicly thank all the people for attending a display next year, dates in the sky. Very good. It's about time we changed as fireworks are becoming boring and a waste of money. Well, I would imagine that the enterprise people would object to cancelling the Red Arrows. Give a lot of pleasure to many, many people. So you're not against cancelling pleasure, are you, Clarkey? And this whole point about, swapping one budget to another, crikey, can you imagine getting one government department to save some money and give it to another? Cashless at the sea terminal is a wonderful idea. Our authorities need to monitor exactly who is coming in and going. A good policy. I'm 1,000,000% agreeing with it, says Sammy. Well, I'd argue with the maths, but we take your point on that. Cyclists also wear headphones and they can't hear what's going around them. Very dangerous. Is that an offence, by the way? Is it an offence? I'm sure if you drive a car and you've got headphones on, that's against the law, isn't it? So if cyclists wear headphones, is that against the law? In fact, surely anybody wearing headphones on a public road would know it's not the right thing to do. And certainly crossing the road, that was a good point by Tia. People who walk across pedestrian crossings or just wander out into the road willy-nilly wearing headphones. Got any thoughts on that? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. And let's get to the phones now. Julian's on. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. How you doing?
Very well, thanks, yeah.
Good. I was looking at the Manx radio news story this morning about the DOI stating that the 20-mile-per-hour zones won't be enforced, but will be implemented.
I can't understand that. I can't understand that. When they say it's not, why on earth have them if there's no penalty, if there's no sanction, if people contravene 20 miles per hour, why on earth are they there?
Well, at the moment, what exactly is the speed limit in Port St Mary then, Andy? Because if they're not enforcing the one that's up, the 30's not there anymore, so can you do 40 or 50?
Well, we haven't yet heard from the constabulary what their view is of this, because, I mean, the people who will be enforcing this are the constabulary. Unless they're going to put up speed cameras, this will be down to warranted officers with speed guns.
Well, I've got an idea as to what's gone on. In this week's sitting of Tynwald, Justice Minister Jane Poole-Wilson stated that the Chief Constable has not been consulted on the speed limit changes. I'd just like to draw everyone's attention to the Isle of Man Road Traffic Act, Section 23, titled General Speed Limits. Under subsection 2, it states, and I quote, "The Department may, after consultation with the Chief Constable, by order increase, reduce or abolish the speed limit imposed in relation to any road in a town or village district." So, from my opinion, I think Michelle Hayward was in such a hurry to get the 20-mile-per-hour blanket limits in, she's contravened the Road Traffic Act law by sidelining the Chief Constable's consultation, which is part of the process. So, it appears that Michelle Hayward is out of her depth in legal matters such as this. And it just gives me further worries about her Safe Access Zone private members bill, which is a far more dangerous and draconian piece of legislation. And from a practical point of view as well, another point, Manx Radio reported in November in 2022 that the Treasury did not have the £2.9 million requested by DOI to implement the island-wide 20-mile-per-hour zones back then 3 years ago. So how much after 3 years is that 3 million gone up, Andy? Is it 4 million? Is it 5 million?
Well, nobody knows.
Michelle Hayward has already...
Yeah, but as you
Michelle
say,
Hayward is...
the point is that who's asked the chief, Mr. Foster, the chief constable, because surely the police are going to be shaking their heads and saying, well, I mean, at the moment, what the chief constable always talks about is, there's a shortage of resources, money, basically, and you have to pay police officers to be on duty. Of course you do. So if somebody's going to be there with a speed gun, they've got to be paid. So how is it going to work if nobody's asked him?
But if the legal process requires the chief constable to be consulted, and that obviously hasn't been done because Jane Poole Wilson has only just a few days ago stated that hasn't happened, well, I would have thought that the first thing to be done is to reverse and put back the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit signs in Port St Mary that were there's a handful of speed limit signs, and I think she said it was £15,000 for a handful of speed limit signs. And where's all this money coming from? And, if we take the 2.9 million back in 2022, that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you think about these ANPR cameras, the typical UK police example of these is supplied by the likes of Vigilant Solutions, Siemens or Gentech AutoView. Each of these cameras cost between 5,000 and 10,000 each.
Right.
And that's not including software subscriptions, cloud data costs. We could be looking at long millions on this.
But I mean, the one thing about speed cameras is they do make money. I mean, they make money when you're asleep. If they nick people, as long as they're calibrated, they make money.
Yeah, but you've still got to man them. So have we got the police manpower and the funding available? And all these costs. I mean, aren't there more pressing issues like, the child operations at Alderhay Hospital, the Air Medical Services, which is just $250,000. I mean, rolling out 20-mile-an-hour zones for £5 million plus. Or what about the hospice being defunded? I mean, does that give a choice for the assisted dying bit as well? There's all these points. There's far more urgent things going on.
I take your point, but point one is that the public has to be safe, the pedestrians have to be safe, and if people are zooming around built-up areas at more than 20 miles an hour, really nobody needs to drive around a built-up area at more than 20 miles. Well, often you can't go more than 20 miles an hour anyway. So the important thing is public safety. We understand that, and it would only take one person to be knocked down, and that will be justified. That's fine. The trouble is, it just seems to be a bit disjointed. The fact that there's no sanction, the police haven't been told, and it's just happening. It just seems to be a bit sort of cart before the horse.
Well, another point to make also is, if you look at the population density of the Isle of Man, it's 147 people for every square kilometre. Now, Michelle Hayward said in Tynwald that this data was taken from Belgium and London. So the Brussels study, which she's quoting, their population density is 7,694 people per square kilometre, which is 52 times the population density of the Isle of Man. London's 7,500, so that's 51 times. Even Cardiff, which was the Welsh one, is 4,637 people per square kilometre, which is 32 times. And if you take somewhere quiet, like if you go up to Ayr, so you've got the likes of Andreas, Bride, Jerby, I mean, they're at 20 per square kilometre, which is almost 400 times less dense population than you've got in the places that she's quoting the data from. So, when you're talking about places with 52 times or 400 times the population density, how is that relevant to the Isle of Man in terms of safety?
Do you think this is? Do you think this is a goer? Because at the moment, without the police there to sanction people, surely this is purely advisory.
Yeah, but, it's going to be chaos. The Brussels Times, the largest newspaper in Belgium, stated on the 8th of January that TomTom, which is the navigation company, was saying that traffic jams were the worst in history, and it was taking 27 minutes to do 6 miles. That would be like, in the time you take to get to Ramsey from Douglas, you'd only have made it to Bulldrain. So, that they're even saying themselves that when you start getting these 20 limits in, it's a nightmare for drivers. You've got cyclists that will get caught up in this as well, or they'll be overtaking, or you won't be able to get past on a hill because you're going to be hung out to dry trying to get past, and you can only do 20. Well, it's just a recipe for disaster.
I have a point about cyclists, and that is that the road below Manx Radio, Douglas Head Road and Fort Anne Road, is a 20 mile an hour speed limit. I know that because a policewoman pointed it out to me one day. It's not a 30, it's a 20 mile an hour limit. And plenty of people whiz up and down there, but that's by the by. So I was driving down the other day, down at 20 miles an hour, down from Manx Radio, down by the quay. I was overtaken by a cyclist.
Yeah.
I was doing 20.
So,
the cyclist was whizzing by me at over. So does this apply to cyclists as well? I'd just be interested to know.
It won't do. But, you've got 2 big points here. One, the law hasn't been followed by an MHK, clearly, because Jane Poole-Wilson has stated clearly that the Chief Constable hasn't been consulted, contravening the Road Traffic Act Section 23. And you've got the slight question of, if we can't even have the Air Med ambulance for $250,000, how is it multiple millions can be spent on this at the moment? There's far more important things to be spending money on than this. It just seems ridiculous.
And so, do you think this... Sue Peters thinks it's anti-motorist, anti-private motorist. Do you think this is? Do you think it is, or do you think that they mean well, but it's just not quite organised well enough?
Well, it seems to go along with the ARAP report that I've mentioned many times, the future of urban consumption, where they don't want any private vehicle ownership. And this is, a sober consultancy company that was commissioned by quite a few mayors around different cities in the world. So, so we take it on face value. If they're saying that they want zero private car ownership by 2030, all this kind of thing does seem to make sense, doesn't it? And then you've got access zones that you can't even wear a T-shirt, that might say something that might offend somebody. And I don't think Michelle Hayward's done herself any favours with this, because I think she's just been rushing at this so fast that the laws have been contravened. And I have a feeling that we'll be seeing 30 mile an hour speed signs being put back in Portsmouth Mary rather soon. Because you can't you can't not enforce it and implement it at the same time. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks, Julian. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
It's now 24 minutes past 12. Ramsey Town Centre has a 20 mile an hour speed limit. Has done for more than a year now, says Tony C. Why doesn't they go and improve the quality of life for the residents by hiring dentists, air traffic controllers, fill the potholes, improve the health service, says Nick. That's Nick, WhatsApp at 970. How about spending some money on completing the horse tramway, just like it was voted for, says Bill. And 857 WhatsApper John says 20 miles per hour will ultimately save lives, especially in towns, irrespective of slowing down the traffic, and it will save lives. That's the end of the debate. Well, we all accept that safety is a massive priority, and everybody has to be safe when they're using roads and walking on pavements by roads. How you do it is another matter, and whether or not this 20 mile per hour speed limit will actually come in, whether it's going to be enforced, what will be the sanctions? Is it going to be 50 quid, 100, 200, 1,000? The same people predicting chaos, nightmares and disaster due to 20 mile per hour signs, says Steve. are the same people predicting mass pile-ups on the roundels, the same people who basically doom-monger and catastrophise everything every single day, says Steve. Well, Steve, it's good to point out, and I'm glad you mentioned that because we were chatting about this the other day in the office. Let's give a word for Tim Baker. Do you remember Tim Baker, one of our many ministers for infrastructure? When the roundels were there and everybody was taking the mickey out of them, ripping the back out of them, Tim Baker said, "You will learn to love the roundels." And here and now, I shall say, Tim Baker, I love those roundels. I always knew they'd work, just like you always knew they'd work. And Juan's on now. Hi, Juan.
Oh, sounds like Michelle Hayward's in deep water again. She loves being in deep water, doesn't she? And just following up on what Julian said there, and just a quick thing now, that the vote, I think, for the against the speed limits at the moment is 2,638. Interestingly, Michelle got elected in by 1,386, so the votes against her motion is far more than what she was elected in at the moment. Just a little side note. Stu Peters, was talking about quite clearly about all the other stuff that was brought in, and I'm looking at the moment on a long convoluted email, which is given the name by Grain Corran, obviously one of the people who don't get the limelight for any of this stuff, and also quite a long convoluted, which obviously been scripted for Michelle, of criteria, draft assumption, criteria that will be considered, place criteria, movement criteria, road characteristics, blah, 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 blah. So, again, I mean, common sense is not prevailing again. We've got 20-mile-an-hour signs all in, and we're putting these here things in place. Now, also, besides that they're not consulting the Chief Constable, I believe from your neighbouring radio station, they've said that the signs are already being bought in and are in store. So, cart before the horse on that one, I think, as well, Andy. Someone needs to be getting a grip of what's going on within government. If they're spending thousands of pounds out, and this is not even being consulted by the police yet, then maybe that needs to be looked into. And the point of people walking, I see this everywhere I go. It's not just the Isle of Man, it's everywhere you go now. People are so integrated with their phones. Their head is down all the time. They walk out in the middle of roads. You know it's going to happen, and your attention's got to be on it so much now. People just walk straight out past, across the middle of the roads, don't even look. And that is another fair point. And I've not heard anything on what times of day these accidents are. They're quoting the accidents in these emails and giving quotations of different ones, but there's no drill down on when these accidents were, who was driving, the age of the driver, all these other little things as well, time of day. So I think more information needs to be given on it. Yeah, do we need dynamic speeds in areas when the schools are open? Yes, certainly, and built-up areas. Just common sense.
What do you think then should happen for people? I mean, do you think it should be an offence for somebody to cross the road wearing headphones?
Well, if you're going to make rules for one, you've got to make rules for another. I mean, everyone, and Stu Peters was quite right, no matter how much they condemn Stu's points are quite valid on a lot of stuff. If you're going to have rules for one, you've got to have rules for another. I mean, the trouble is now, the Pandora's box is open, isn't it? You're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. Everyone's wearing earbuds and headphones.
Well, that's it. I mean, the headphones are nowadays, as you say, are little earbuds. They're not big Dan Dare type things that you can see from a mile away. You only know people are wearing headphones when you see the little white things in their ears.
That people are just not integrated, especially the younger generation, in what's around them anymore. They're just integrated in what they're listening to on their earbuds. And that's half the problem. People are not integrated in life anymore. They're not interested in what's going on around them, which is a lot of the problem. And, back to the Arab report, it's quite clear what's going on here. Someone in government is invested in this Arab report, like most other places, and it's quite clear what they're following with these agendas because they're all starting to link together. Everyone's talking now about the cashless at the sea terminal. I brought this up on this programme. When was the government conference, Andy? Remind me, I've got so much going on in my life, I can't remember.
Oh, they have one every year. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I questioned Jane Poole Wilson there and then on the spot when she slowly stuck it into her conversation or her speech, and I said, can I just refer back to that question, or that what you just put out, that there will be no cashless payments at the sea terminal? She said, yeah, that's correct. You know what? If there's going to be a criminal come to the Isle of Man, they're going to find a way around that. It's not rocket science. It's criminals don't abide by laws. All they're doing is putting more laws out for honest people. And yes, do we need to protect our borders? Certainly. So you just show your ID. I mean, if you're driving a car on board, you've got a driver's license. You show photo ID. It's as simple as that. Yeah. And if you want cameras, you put the cameras at the other side. You've got a 2-hour journey for the police to be able to monitor who's on that boat and stop them when they come off. Surely that's common sense. But no, I think there's another agenda. I think they want to get more camera observation in here, more ANPR, more facial recognition. And I think that's the agenda, because common sense would say, have it before they get on the boat, show photo ID like you do when you get on the plane. Surely that's most of your problems sorted.
OK, all right. Appreciate it, Ewan. Have a good weekend.
Take care, Andy.
No matter how much you need to dig or how much you want to dump, Fox Group Isle of Man offer an extensive range of plant hire, long-term lease and sales. We're the island's exclusive supplier for Louis Gong excavators with immediate delivery. Our machinery comes with a complete service package with finance plan options. Call John on 458946 to discuss your plant needs. Fox Group Isle of Man, part of the Fox Group of companies.
Right, I say, when you're looking for the perfect bathroom, get your silly walk over to Pacesetter, where you'll get friendly help and advice on bathrooms that will work for you. From practical, accessible bathrooms for aging users to the ultimate in luxury designs with walk-in showers and wet rooms, with no inquisitions, dead birds or hard sell. You'll always be on the bright side of life when you see the stunning range on display at Pacesetter Tile and Bathroom Studio, Harris Terrace, Douglas, or search online for Pacesetter Douglas.
I am one car centre, the place to go. Great choice and prices so low. I am one car centre on Domain Road. Cars of every kind at prices that are hard to find. Visit on Facebook to see the range or call 611-040. Great service, choice and prices low. I am one car centre, the place to go.
In life, we plan for birthdays, anniversaries and holidays. But what about planning for the unexpected?
I've worked hard all my life. I want to make sure everything's in place for my family.
Man Benham understands. We specialise in enduring powers of attorney, mental health receiverships, and are there for you when mental capacities decline.
Thanks to Man Benham, your legacy is protected.
Secure your family's future today. Visit manbenham.com, because peace of mind is the best legacy.
On a frustrating run of 6 games without a win, can FC Isle of Man break their duck in the NWCFL Premier Division this weekend? After a gruelling doubleheader last time out, the Ravens are back at the bowl again this Saturday with South Liverpool, the latest visitors. Join me, Rob Pritchard and Tony Mepham for FC Isle of Man versus South Liverpool, kicking off at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Manx Radio will be bringing you full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. Live coverage of FC Isle of Man on Manx Radio is supported by Selton, investing in our community. The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Friday lunchtime, 25 to 1, and Tony B's on. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Andy. How are you?
Very well. So it's Friday. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be doing 30 mile an hour for the rest of the year, I guess. My issue is, why is Michelle Hayward just repeating what she's been told from DOI management instead of actually looking at what she's told and reading it and understanding? If Julian can do it and do all this research and come up with answers, why is she not even looking at it? And the answer is because it's easier just to repeat what she's been told. Oh, and we're doing this for your benefit. Well, I don't think so. I think they're doing it because they want to. Somebody in DUI has got this bee in their bonnet that we should all walk, and therefore we should just put 20-mile-an-hour speed limits everywhere. There is no consultation. We're not asked. They don't even ask the police, who are the ones that I'm expecting are going to have to do something about it if somebody breaks the law. It's just getting worse and worse and worse day by day. I mean, I think we should have Julian elected as head of DOI, fire the department heads, and put Julian in, because he's at least looking at the information and researching what the real reasons are for everything. And yet nobody in the DOI, which is quite a big department, by the way, seems to be looking at any of this. They're quoting a report from across that gives them the right narrative for them to put this forward.
The thing is, everybody is for road safety. Everybody wants everybody to be safe. It's just how you do it, isn't it?
I'll give you another example. Okay, so you put 20-mile-an-hour speed limits on a big double-sided road, no parked cars or anything else, and somebody goes along and they're doing 20 mile an hour. And then some boy racer who's sitting behind them doesn't like that, and they're going to come past at 40 mile an hour, because that's what it takes to overtake a 20 mile an hour car. So you're actually going to create potentials for people to get killed, because when you overtake, you do a lot faster than the existing speed limit. So it just goes on and on and on. I am not against road safety. Ramsey has put 20 mile an hour down a high street, and I abide by it. And on the side of the port, I think that's a good thing. It's not a problem. But it didn't take DOI to come along and order £50,000 worth of signs and decide they're going to put them all up everywhere. What it took was the council looked at it and said, I think this is a good idea. We need to try and just put 20s in. And we've got speed bumps along the high street, so it makes sense. But there is no sense to what the DOI wants to do. So my question comes back to Michelle Hayward. What exactly is she doing other than repeating what she's being told? Is she actually looking at anything? And also, you come back to her own personal thing. I want to have an exclusion zone at the hospital. But it's not just for the hospital, it's for everywhere in the world. So anybody that disagrees with me, I'm going to put an exclusion zone in and arrest them. And there is no law that allows you to do that, because you've got a freedom of speech issue and a freedom of demonstration issue. So we're going to end up in a three-ring circus with somebody taking us to the Human Rights Court in The Hague and saying, you're infringing my human rights. Not a good look.
When if this comes to the 20 mile an hour speed limit, I've just had a note in from Fred, who just said, look, here's some food for thought. If this happens, how long before there's going to be a congestion charge for Douglas? If they can start to do things like this.
Well, that's a very good point. Where's it going to end? It's not going to end anywhere. It'll end with, we'll make Douglas traffic free. We can all walk everywhere. But of course, if you're disabled or you can't walk very far, you're going to be in trouble. So the whole direction that we're heading is one of central control, and most of this is coming from DOI. I mean, why on earth do they think that taking money out of the sea terminal or the boat or anywhere else is going to actually do anything of any value? This is the shall we say, the thin end of the wedge to try and drive us into, you will have to use a credit card or a debit card. Which I don't have a problem with using credit and debit cards at my choice. But I'll use cash whenever I can, and I want to. But our choices are getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
And it's all for our own good.
Choice.
It's all for our own good.
But the issue is, we didn't vote for this. Ewan said he'd asked the lady, I can't remember her name.
Jane Paul Wilson.
Woman. Yeah, so he asked her directly, are you going to cut off the cash? No. And then 6 months later, maybe, a year later, we'll cut off the cash because we think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because we've heard from somebody in Afghanistan that if you stop using cash, people can't get robbed. I mean, where do they get this from? This is the Isle of Man. We're importing ideas from global places that have no relevance whatsoever. And it's parroted across the whole of the MHKs. It's all right, it's fine, we've got this organised, don't worry. And I do worry. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. So I think Julian should be elected as head of DOI. Dewan should be as the chief minister, and we might get a bit of sense into the place. And then Stu Peters could actually come along and get something done. I mean, there's loads of things that they could be focusing on, but they're not focusing on the important things. Like there's a lady on the other day said exactly that. We're being thrown sticks to chase, you know, killing people. That's fine if we do it in a controlled manner. But the point is, our laws will have to be under the UK law. Otherwise, you're once again going to get into a trouble with conflicts between us and the UK jurisdiction. It just doesn't make any sense. Getting rid of the bishop, that's a policy came from one individual who happens to belong to the Liberal Party or something?
Liberal Vannin.
Yeah, so that's his party policy. So why on earth is he bringing in a party policy when really it shouldn't be there? It's not up to him, it's up to the people of the Isle of Man if you want to make a structural change, which is what it is.
All right.
Anyway, I think we should vote for Julian and Dewan, and we should get rid of all the rest, including Michelle Hayward, who's clearly out of her depth, even though she's a diver.
All right.
Okay?
Have a good weekend.
Happy
Thanks,
day.
Tony. Good to hear from you.
Enjoy your weekend, and hopefully we'll survive until next week before they bring something else in.
All right. Thanks for calling today. If you want to, by the way, make any comments or objections to the rules in the Road Traffic Regulation Order, you email highwayregulations.doi@gov.im. That email address is at Manx Radio's news page on that particular news story. highwayregulations.doi@gov.im. And David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just to let you know, John moved into his flat last night.
Terrific.
The night. Those people I will be in touch with regarding goods and supplying with sheets, single sheets, all sorts of bits and pieces like that. We've got all sorts of stuff, but I'll mention that another day. I wanted to mention about the 20-mile zone, and this is fact. As a commissioner, there was an email sent, and I'll send this to you, Andy. I thought I had to send it to you. It was dated the 4th of March. It wasn't received by political members in Onken, that's the local authority, until the 15th of March. And it says it starts off that the department would like to notify the up-and-coming Douglas and Onken area relating to the rolling out of an all-island 20-mile-an-hour residential speed project. So it's a project. Now, it goes on to implementation date. This is a good one. Implementation date. The scheme will commence on the 10th of March. What day is it today?
It's the 21st.
Well, they're behind. With the appointed contractor, has anybody ever seen a notification which they have to, under the financial regulations, to advertise for a contractor to do the work? And what's the work involved? Second point that they've missed there and haven't done, that's the department. And then the other thing is, they mentioned about other things, about a blanket 20-mile-an-hour zone in the vast majority of other areas. This is appertaining to Douglas and Onken. Now, I've looked at the Douglas one as well as the Onken one. And the road, the 3rd Avenue in Douglas, right, is about 100 yards long. And that's going to be a 20 zone, so it's got to have a plank on the front and then the plaque at the back to say it's a 20-mile zone. You couldn't get up to 20 if you tried. So I hope people do get on to the emails and their politicians say, how did this come about? Where was the consultation with the local authorities all around the island? Because they're going to try and happen. Yeah. And especially the chief constable or the police. And I told you the other day, the police are packed in doing anything in Onken now for immediate effect. So we can't even ask them. And
that was immediate, wasn't it? It was just a notice through to say it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. And we still haven't got the answer. I'm still waiting for responses.
Okay.
And I'd encourage people to do freedom of access requests too. We need the information. People out there ask it all the time, what's happening here and what's happening there.
Okay.
And they forgot about an older generation which doesn't have an iPad.
Well, give John all our very best, would you, David? I'm sure you take all our good wishes to John and wish him well.
I know. And he had fish and chips last night. All right?
All right.
See ya.
Cheers now.
Get ready to swing, sip, and sizzle at the Big Band Party Night. A roaring 1920s affair. Flapper dresses, dapper suits, and a sensational 14-piece big dance band. It's Prohibition, but we've got you covered. Join us at Comus Hotel and Golf Resort on the 21st or 22nd of March. From just £59, enjoy an arrival drink, 3-course meal, and a party till midnight. Book now at comushotel.com. Before the fuzz finds out.
A new bed? What a great idea! Especially when Miller Chaps have such a superb range. From traditional springs with Hypnos luxury wool and natural fillings to latex and the famous Temper mattress. Choose from bed frames and storage divans of all types. With friendly staff happy to explain the range, special offers throughout, and time to lie down and actually try the mattresses. When it's time for a good night's sleep, it's time to visit Miller Chaps of Ramsey.
Quadlock is the strongest and most secure mounting system in the world for integrating your phone, camera or accessories into your outdoor pursuits and for your car, van or motorhome. See the Quadlock display at H&H Motorcycles in South Key, Douglas.
It's time to start enjoying the garden. And from barbecues to garden furniture and machinery, tools and plants, Riley's Garden Centre has everything you need. Call Road Braddon and rileys.co.im or follow them on Facebook or Instagram.
There's monkeys and meerkats, penguins galore. You can meet with a panda, owls, lemurs and more.
The Carax Wildlife Park is open 7 days a week. So book your tickets and experiences online now at caraxwildlifepark.im.
March Tynwald appeared to hold much promise with both the health overspend and the Manx Care mandate looking set to dominate proceedings. Neither were discussed due to Tynwald niceties and procedural matters, but this allowed members to focus on some of the other matters on the order paper, not least the updates to our island plan. Chris Thomas likened ministerial cheerleading for the plan to support given by communist leaders to similar plans from the Soviet Union. But was that fair? Find out on Perspective this Sunday at 12 noon on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. Tynwald seemed full of excited talk this week. Must be an election coming.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Howard's on now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. A little while ago, for the last fortnight or so, I think it was on your programme, you said something about people using the sirens and lights on emergency vehicles when they're not supposed to. Well, yesterday afternoon, I was sat on the promenade over at the Palace Terrace end. I treated myself to an ice cream, actually. And I said to my wife, oh, that sounds like ambulance or something. And it was an ambulance coming along the promenade from the pier end with the blue lights on and the sirens going. And as it went past, it was an English registered vehicle. It wasn't Manx registered. And it wasn't driving as though they were on emergency because he was allowing traffic to go out, in and out and that. But it looked very much like he was just playing on the promenade. So they got over as far as Summerland, and about 5 minutes or so later, he came back along the promenade in no particular hurry, with the blue lights on and the sirens going. And two fellas, one driving and one passenger. It appeared to be like a green paramedic uniform. I could be wrong on that one. But why were they doing that yesterday afternoon on the promenade?
Did it look like a brand new vehicle?
It was a fairly, well, I don't know. It wasn't the usual Mercedes that they've got here.
Right. And it was a UK plate, so I don't know. Maybe they were UK. Yeah, maybe they were just trying everything out. But I mean, you'd try it out somewhere else, wouldn't you? If you were.
Well, if you're using blues and twos, you wouldn't go on the open road.
Yeah, that's true.
You could do those in a garage, or on a. But to drive along the promenade with the blues and twos on, you know. Why? why was it necessary? Because, as I say, I don't know if it was on your program. You asked people if they could report them, so to speak, if they're wrongly using the blues and twos on emergency vehicles. And that's exactly what this looked like, because there seemed to be nothing come along. There was nobody else bar them went along the promenade and come back again.
Right. So, and it was a UK registered vehicle.
Yeah.
So
and it was all in ambulance colours. It was an ambulance.
Yeah.
And the lights are all fitted to the roof and not neon, but LED lights all in the bonnet and everything. It was a fully fitted ambulance, but who it was driving it, I don't know.
Well, I've heard of things. I've heard of something called blue light training, but I would assume they do that on closed roads or somewhere else, or certainly not on the prom, because that would surely cause alarm. That's what it's for.
Yeah. Well, it was over. As I say, they came along. We were sitting there on the Palace Terrace, and it came past us, but it slowed down virtually to a stop to allow traffic to move going along the promenade. If that had been an emergency, as they were trying to indicate, then there was people pulled in to let the ambulance overtake it.
Right.
And it was only going slow in a sense, and it was not what you would term as a serious injury or anything like that, where they will do brain injury, etc., where they will go slow for the patient's safety.
Okay.
But this was just looked like a couple of fellas just acting the goat.
We'll try and find out, Howard. All right. Thanks for calling.
Okay, take care.
Good to talk to you. Thanks for that. A note in from 051. Stop blaming the pedestrians, the cyclists, and anybody else except the motorists. The amount of bad drivers on the Isle of Man is appalling. They need to be reined back in. 20 miles per hour is the right thing to do in built-up areas because the driving is diabolical. Get used to it. Put your foot down. Put your foot down as in make your point, that is 051. And I wonder if you can help me with this. A note in from Paul, and he explains this. I find it ironic that the government's brought the steam packet and in conjunction with the Department of Home Affairs has decided to stop cash payments. When Alan Bell was Chief Minister, he was encouraging the public to use Manx banknotes because it helps support government finances. How Manx banknotes work? Well, the Isle of Man government issues its own banknotes, but they aren't like British pound notes issued by the Bank of England. The key difference is that Manx banknotes are backed by a deposit of funds with a bank to ensure their value. And Paul says the key financial mechanism at play is issuing the banknotes. When the Manx government issues a £10 Manx note, it has to deposit £10 with a bank. And this ensures that every Manx pound in circulation is backed by real money. The interest factor. That deposited money earns interest, but the Manx government doesn't have to pass that interest on to the people holding the banknotes. Essentially, anybody holding a Manx note has, in a way, given the Manx government an interest-free loan because they've accepted that note in the place of actual pounds. The benefit to the government is, since the government's earning interest on the deposit but doesn't have to pay interest to the public, it effectively profits from the system. The more Manx banknotes in circulation, the more money the government can have earning interest. This is why former Chief Minister Alan Bell encouraged the use of Manx notes. The more people using Manx banknotes instead of British ones, the more money the Manx government holds in its deposit account earning interest. This provides a financial benefit to the Isle of Man without having to raise taxes or borrow money in traditional ways. And the issue with a cashless system is, if the steam packet or any other major business stops accepting cash, people will use electronic payments instead, meaning fewer Manx banknotes in circulation. If fewer notes are used, the Manx government may have to reduce the amount of money held in the interest-earning deposit account, which reduces the financial benefit. So while going cashless may seem like a modern convenience, says Paul, it could have an economic impact on the Isle of Man by reducing this passive income stream for the government. This is just another example of fragmented government without due consideration for all the implications. Now, have you got any thoughts on that? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Oh, and a quick word about Beach Buddies. They were going to be at Ramsey this weekend, but there's a half marathon in Ramsey, so they've changed the venue for this weekend. Sunday, March 23rd, 10:30, Port Soderick. There's a choice. You can either clean the beach at Port Soderick or you can go to the Glen and areas along Marine Drive. Everybody's welcome, especially new faces. They'd love to see you. Let's have a look. A note is that it's blue light training. Blue light training. This is apparently has to be done in normal road conditions for obvious reasons. So that was blue light training. And the civil defence used blue lights on the public highway, but they aren't covered by legislation. It'll be a legal case waiting to happen if it goes wrong for them, says Bill. Thank you, Bill. Good to hear from you. And yes, Nick, ditto what Paul said. So everybody needs to use their Manx pound notes and Manx currency. The buck for the DOI fiasco stops surely with the chief officer. Maybe she needs to manage her managers. They seem to be struggling. Is the department fit for purpose, says Andrea on 538. And yes, another note in just saying, if this starts happening, if they've got trying to find things to do, will the next thing be a congestion charge for the Isle of Man? Oh, thank you. A message also in from Brenda. She said, I heard you when you were talking to the students. You kept asking them, who's got a bike? And of all the 16 and 17-year-olds, nobody rode a bike to school. And this is the coming generation. So if active travel is the future, they either have to make public transport easy for everybody or give everybody a free bike. Well, it's a thought, isn't it? Thank you, Nikki. She said, we need progression, not regression. Things seem to be going backwards. I'm sure something somewhere is going forward. Who knows? We may get the other half of the halfway tramway. That's it. Thanks for your company this week. Thanks for your contributions. David Ashford, MHK, Minister for the Cabinet Office, is on Monday. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Have a brilliant weekend.
WILD